Again, thank you all so much for being here this evening. Let's start with a prayer. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. All right, I was pretty excited earlier because I got the live stream up and working when it shouldn't have been, and I was shouting in happiness, and now my voice is just like really scratchy. You get old and you shout once and it's just gone. That's the end of it. Beautiful. So today we're talking about Cain and Abel. Yeah. I had a teacher in I don't remember where. At the beginning of every class, he'd be like, so what the heck did we talk about last week? And we'd have to sit there and explain what we talked about because you could never remember. So last week, what we talked about was the fall. We talked about those two people. Adam and Eve is their names, right? We talked about how grandpa and grandma there were made for each other. They were made for happiness. They were made for paradise, and they had it. They were in God's family, right? But then through their own disobedience, through their own lack of trust, they lost it. And they radically wounded that relationship with God, their relationship with each other, their relationship with the very earth that they had been placed there upon. What used to be a paradise isn't anymore, right? Some bug up here. But despite the fact that that's a substantial tragedy, like that loss is going to come up. That's a substantial tragedy. It's the loss of it's the loss of paradise. And yet, despite the shame and the feeling of loss that they would be experiencing at that point, God gives them hope. He gives them hope of a future. And in particular, he promises them that one of their descendants will crush the serpent, the head of the serpent who just tricked them. So that one of their descendants will undo this curse, will undo this loss, and restore them to paradise. So I want you to put yourself in this situation, right? You're one of them. You're Adam, you're Eve. You have just this hope that maybe somebody that you know, maybe your own children, would be able to be the ones to undo this massive screw-up that you have just inflicted upon all of humanity, which at this point is just you and your wife, but it's gonna be big, right? So, I keep unscrewing this thing as though I'm gonna take a drink and then I don't. So, it occurred to me just now it's occurring to me, how many of these slides have the word intercourse on them, which is a little bit awkward. Well, why not? We're gonna lean into it, right? So, the man, that's Adam, we won't get into this, we don't have time. The man, Adam, has intercourse with his wife Eve, and she conceives and gave birth to Cain, saying, I have produced a male child with the help of the Lord. The name Cain, we don't have time for this. Next, she gave birth to his brother Abel. Abel became a herder of flocks, and Cain a tiller of the ground, right? So, and then, again, you're Adam and Eve. You've messed up. One day, your wife starts getting fat. And she has a baby. Because this is the first time it's ever happened, right? This is an unprecedented thing. So you can see, you can almost read the surprise. I have produced a male child with the help of the Lord, right? Because I didn't do much of this, just happened, right? Clearly God had something to do with this, right? But she rightfully gives God the credit for this, because this is the gift, right? This is step one in fulfilling this promise, this prophecy, that your child, your descendant, will undo. There will be this point where this is undone. So you're Adam and Eve, and you've got these two beautiful children, and you think to yourself, maybe one of them will be the one who can undo what we've done. So this is a time of great hope. You've got this family, this first family, they're dealing with this huge loss. They're dealing with a lot of division and conflict that has come from the fall. And yet, there's this huge hope that maybe one of them will be the one to undo this, right? In the course of time, so time passes. In the course of time, Cain, our son, brought an offering to the Lord from the fruit of the ground, while Abel, for his part, brought the fatty portion of the firstlings of the flock. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry and dejected. Now you can kind of gather from this, look at this, oh man, that the fatty portion of the firstlings of the flock is like a greater offering, a greater gift. But whatever the deal is, Cain's gift is not as full, is not as sincere, is not as much of a sacrifice, is not like a real, for somehow full and pure gift to the Lord. So, for some reason, God is more happy with Abel's than he is with Cain, right? Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why are you dejected? If you act rightly, you will be accepted. But if not, sin lies at your door. Sin lies at wait in your door. Its urges for you, yet you can rule over it." Now this, most of you probably know how this story goes. You know it's about to take a pretty dark turn. But there's a pretty significant thing that's happening here. Remember, these are our children. These are the ones that can undo the curse that we have incurred upon humanity, right? What's being set up here is, in fact, another opportunity. God is doing the same thing here that he did for Adam and Eve. He's warning them. He's saying, hey, there's this tree in the garden. Don't eat of it, right? It's dangerous. It's not good for you. I need you to trust me that I've given you paradise. I've given you everything that you could need. Just steer clear of this tree. In the same way, this is the same sort of warning. Hey, the devil wants to really screw you up here. The same serpent that just tricked your parents. He's still out there. Be careful. And he gives him an opportunity here. You will, if you act rightly, if you obey the way that your parents did not, if you act rightly, you will be accepted. Oh my gosh, there's so many things here. The word accepted actually means you will be uplifted, which could in fact mean if you are obedient, if you follow me, if you act rightfully, then all of humanity will be uplifted again. There will be some measure of restoration if you act rightly. And then he says, the enemy lies at wait. Its urge is for you, yet you can rule over it. Which is the idea of ruling over is the idea of Adam and Eve having dominion, ruling over the garden. So this is very much like a setup hey, look out. Something bad is there's an opportunity here. But, this is in a certain sense, this is your apple. This is your tree. If you act rightfully, then you will be uplifted and you will be kind of restored to this role of ruling again. Pretty cool, right? In the hearts of Adam and Eve, in the hearts of Cain, this should be like your heartbeat quickens a little bit. This is the chance, this is the chance. But tragedy. Cain says to his brother Abel, "Let us go out in the field." While they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Then the Lord asked Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" He answered, "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" That line, "Am I my brother's keeper?" it feels to us kind of like this throwaway of like, I don't know, I'm not in charge of him, right? Like this kind of like dismissal of the role of taking care of him. There's actually another way to understand this, and that is that Cain is saying God is Abel's keeper. So in essence, what he's saying is, I don't know, you're in charge of him. In essence, what he's saying is, I don't know, you're the one who's supposed to be taking care of him. I don't know, you're the one who let this happen. It's kind of like murdering a police officer's family and then saying, like, you're a police officer, you should have stopped me, right? This is kind of dark, I'm sorry. This is a dark episode in our history, right? It is like, it's a really dark thing to say to God. And it's very similar to, like, so let's look at, oh my gosh, we're going to keep, right. God said, what have you done? Your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. You are banned from the ground that opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. If you till the ground, it shall no longer give you produce. You shall become a constant wanderer on the earth. So, let's look. So here we had this opportunity. Here, Cain has sort of his own chance here to maybe make some restoration, to succeed while his parents failed. He has the chance, and he is the hope. This boy of ours is the hope that he might fix what we messed up. He gets the chance to obey. He gets the chance to rule again. He gets the chance to trust God. But instead, like, he again, the same way that his parents did, he fails. The question that God asks, what have you done, is actually the same question he asks Eve after it happens. What have you done? He gives the same response of blaming other people, blaming even God. This woman you put here did this to me. This is your fault. Well, you're my brother's keeper. He follows the exact same footsteps of failure as his parents. And his poor parents, Adam and Eve, like, not only is one of their sons murdered, which, man, this is dark, right? This is a dark episode. They've never had it, like, the same way that this is the first child that's ever been brought into the world, this is the first time that any man has ever died. Like, can you imagine what it would have been like for them to wrap their heads around the loss of their son Abel? And to know that their son Cain, who could have been the one to restore things, who could have been the descendant that had been prophesied about, who could have been the one that the Lord promised, instead has turned away from the Lord, has disobeyed, has killed. It's the same fault, and it carries the same consequence of death and curse. This curse that God puts on the ground, it ratchets up actually the fall. It's pretty nuts. So he tells him the same way, like, so Cain he was a farmer, right? He was a farmer. He was a farmer. And it's his job to till the soil and nurture it and upplant, corn and beans or whatever, they're growing. But here he waters the ground that he's supposed to be caring for with the blood of his brother. And so the Lord's rightfully this ground can't bear fruit for you anymore. Look what you've done. This curse actually is like a everybody from here on out sort of thing. We'll hear more about what becomes of that later. But from this point on, they cannot till the soil. They are wanderers. They're killing animals and picking berries and nuts and that sort of thing, right? They're no longer producing fruit, right? And Cain is especially cursed to be a wanderer, right? So we had a second chance here. We had a chance to get reset. Our son Cain and Abel had this chance to make it good. And instead, what we endure again is a second fall. and a second curse on top of the first one. So Cain is banished. He gets sent to wander east of Eden. And it says, Adam again had intercourse with his wife, and she gave birth to a son whom she called Seth. God has granted me another offspring in place of Abel, she said, because Cain killed him. To Seth, in turn, a son was born, and he named him Enosh. At that time, people began invoking the Lord by name. So we've got like this kind of dark second fall. But the same way that after the first fall, the Lord came with like a message of hope. Don't worry. One of your descendants will undo this. Don't worry. I'm still with you. The same way that like comfort, that hope came after the fall, in this second fall, we've got a similar like, don't worry, here's another son. His name is Seth. Like, don't worry, I am still with you. And in turn, it says people began to invoke the Lord by name. So this line, so to speak, the line of Seth is like a godly line. It's the line that God is blessing. It's the line that God is beginning to work through. And we'll see that kind of play out here pretty significantly because next one. Aha! Look at this fancy tree that I made, right? So the next few passages are one of these passages that we get a lot in the Bible that's like, and so begot so-and-so, and so begot so-and-so, and so begot so-and-so, right? So it's this whole list of names, right? It is important to note that there are also, it explicitly lists in the line of Seth and other sons and daughters. And Adam and Eve had other sons and daughters. Now you may ask yourself, how did Seth have a child?
I think I know exactly.
Right. That is a question perhaps for another day. But I think you can kind of, right. At that point, there are no other fish in the sea. At that point, yeah, it's another thing for another day. But there is an answer to how that all worked out and how it's not just super creepy. But it is a little bit creepy. All right, so Seth, so here's the line, right? So Abel is dead. Abel is dead. I should have got like a big just, that would have been dark. We get one of these things where first it starts going through the line of Cain. So Cain goes and settles to the east of Eden. He's kind of a wanderer there. He has kids also. He has, and his line, we've got his boy Enoch, Enoch's boy Irad, Irad's boy Mehujael, Mehujael's boy Methusael, Methuselah's boy Lamech. My favorite, though, is the last one. Lamech names his kids Jubal, Jabal, and Tubal-Cain. Now, at this point, there's no we'll name you after our great-great-grandfather, right? Like, they're just coming up with these names on the fly. So this line here, the line of Cain, is to be kind of considered like the earthly line, right? They're inheriting the curse of Cain, as are all people, but they are in a special way, right? Lamech here, he actually, and it's said, we're not going through all the details here, but Lamech is also, he's a murderer. He kills somebody. Jubal, Jabal, and Tubal-Cain are noted for Jubal becomes the kind of progenitor for the musicians, the lyre and reed. Jabal becomes like the progenitor for those who care for livestock. Tubal-Cain is like a smith, right? Like a blacksmith. So he works in bronze and iron. So we see a lot of innovation here. These are people who are making good, who are creating. But there's also the connotation with Tubal-Cain here that he's producing, that's going to keep being funny, I guess, that he's also producing like weapons, like swords and knives. So this line has got like some goodness to it, but is also like still kind of bearing the mark of Cain, so to speak, as far as like bearing like this heritage of violence and this heritage of evil and darkness in a certain sense, right? So Seth, on the other hand, Seth has his boy Enosh and his boy Kenan. Look at this one, Mahalalel. Of all the names on this list, though, then we got Jared. Which is Jared here? I don't know where Jared must have left. Enoch. So again, we're working off another Enoch, and an Enosh here. Methuselah, who you probably heard of. Methuselah grows to be 999 years old when he dies. Lamech, which is also the same as this Lamech, I'm just now realizing. That's weird. And then his boy Noah. So what we've got here is this whole line of both houses. It said here. We might have to come back to this to make things make sense. When Lamech, that's the Lamech from the line of Seth, was 182 years old, he begot a son and named him Noah, saying, oh dear, this one shall bring us relief from our work and from the toil of our hands out of the very ground that the Lord has put under a curse. So this shows that like everybody's kind of dealing with this curse from Cain, right? And Lamech is the same way, like, so the same way that Adam and Eve would have looked at their son and be like, maybe him. Lamech looks at his boy Noah and says, maybe he will be the one. And you can kind of imagine, like, down that whole line, them being like, maybe my boy Kenan, maybe my boy Mahalalel, maybe my boy Jared, right? Maybe where I failed in my chances to trust the Lord and obey him, maybe my son will be the one who can turn this around. Maybe my son will be the one that the Lord will work through to restore us to where we were, right? So that's what he says about Noah. Now, we are going to take like a pretty solid detour here for just like a little bit to handle Genesis 6:1. I don't know if any of you guys have like read through the Bible start to finish. A lot of people start and they hit Genesis 1 and they're like, I don't know about this anymore. Because it's got this weird line. This is 2 verses. When human beings began to grow numerous on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw how beautiful the daughters of human beings were, and they took for their wives whomever they pleased. It says later, after the sons of God had intercourse with the daughters of human beings who bore them sons. Right? So you've got this weird thing that's like, okay, is that like angels coming and having intercourse with people? Yeah.
I used to believe that idea.
Yeah. So that's not a very good translation that doesn't, or understanding that doesn't seem to fit into like anything in the rest of the faith or the rest of the scriptures. The way that I have heard this interpreted, which frankly makes a lot of sense to me, and I think is an excellent translation, but it more is like very relevant to our story thus far, is that when this refers to the sons of God, they're talking about the godly line of Seth, right? These folks, oh dear, these folks. And when they're talking about the human line, like the earthly line, they're talking about these folks. And so that what this is supposed to represent is not like this weird, like, I don't know if you guys saw the movie Noah with Russell Crowe. Yeah, those weird like rock things. That's where this is 6:1 is where they're getting that. Is this idea, oh dear, we're all over the place. This idea that they're like these like mixes between angels and people or something weird. But what this is probably meaning to say is that these folks of the godly line are mixing with the folks that are like kind of under this curse, which is bad, right? Because it's in a certain sense rejecting that God is going to work through the holy line, right? And it's especially interesting when you look at the fact, this is really crazy. When Adam and Eve took the fruit from the garden, do you remember, anybody remember what it says? Like the like kind of steps that it took. What's that? Right, they saw that it was, I don't know if you said the same thing. No. Yeah. It was pleasing, they saw that it was pleasing to the eye, and so they reached out and took it. So they saw it, it was beautiful, pleasurable, good for eating, is what it says, and they reached out and took it. So check this out. The sons of God saw how beautiful, pleasurable the daughters of human beings were, and so they took them. This is, in a sense, the third fall. No, right? So like, again, it's like, it's representing this fact that like everyone in this line has a chance to be obedient to God, to follow Him. And yet every single story that we've heard from these folks is like a chance that they take that they blow. And then they look at their children and hope that they're the ones who follow God, who are obedient, who might be able to be the descendant that was promised to be able to set them free, right? So, all right, we're coming. That's bam. So Noah. So meanwhile, while this is happening, Noah is growing older. Oh dear. Yeah, we're doing okay. So you guys know God looks down upon the earth, and he's seen all this evil. He's seeing the murders, he's seeing the weaponry, he's seeing the destruction. And I don't know if you guys have ever had the experience, like you talk to somebody who's a dad, and he's like, you know what, if somebody beats me up, okay. But if somebody beats my kid up, I'm taking them freaking down, you know? There's a special pain that you feel in watching your loved ones be hurt. God is looking on his children and seeing them killing each other, and seeing them hurt each other, and seeing them just be wicked and evil. And he looks on that and he's like, his heart is grieved, right? So he says, the Lord saw how great the wickedness of human beings was on earth. And not just like they really sucked. Not just like, hey, these guys aren't that great, you know, they could be better. But every desire that their heart conceived was always nothing but evil. That is to say, like, there is nothing left in their hearts that's even like on a good day, like, oh, hey, something good would be a nice change of pace. It's just evil all the time. Every desire that their heart conceived was always nothing but evil. Not even like a piece of cake would be nice, right? Like, not even like things would not, like, not even like neutral thoughts. Just evil thoughts. That's where we're at, right? So we're not like, sometimes it's easy to feel bad for these people who get wiped away by the floods. They were straight evil. They were super bad, right? So, but Noah and his sons find favor with the Lord, right? So, he tells Noah, think about how this plays out, because this is awesome. He starts out with a warning. I have looked upon the earth, and I have seen... we're going to look out exactly what it says, because I'm going to spread misinformation. Gotta make sure that you're doing things right. Or I'll say, people accuse you of making up stuff. That's no good. I, on my part, am about to bring the flood waters on the earth to destroy all creatures. So he starts out with this warning, right? Now, it's the same sort of warning that he gives to Adam and Eve, the same sort of warning that he gives to Cain. Is like, hey, this thing is coming. And Noah has the same chance, the same opportunity for what? To be obedient, to be righteous, to be accepted. And in a sense, like, to manage and have dominion over all creatures, right? Because he's going to put all the creatures in a boat, right? So he gives him the same chance. And where Cain and Adam and the sons of men, like, all blow this shot, all refuse to trust, all disregard the warning, Noah listens. And Noah trusts. Like, the big sort of thing is like it's a lot of work to build an ark, right? And if somebody told you there was going to be a big flood and you should build a really big boat, would you do it? It's like, Noah totally did. He trusted with all of his heart and undertook this pretty substantial undertaking to build a big freaking boat and put a bunch of freaking animals in it, right? So he does. He actually listens. And does anybody know how many animals he puts of each type, species?
Everybody says he put two, one male and one female, and yet there are other verses in the Bible that suggest otherwise.
So it actually says it's 7 pairs of the clean species and 2 pairs of the unclean. No, 1 pair of the unclean species, right? So it's because you can't eat the unclean species, and so you're going to need a little bit of the extra of the clean ones. So, like, actually, that's like, because they have to have something to eat while they're on the boat, right? So, and he's got dominion, right? Oh my gosh. So Noah, he loads up the ark with all these animals, and he's following God, and God gives a lot of instructions throughout this phase, like, hey, you need to do this. Hey, now's the time to do this. Hey, and he follows it all with total faithfulness, right? He puts the animals on the boat. He loads it up. The time comes. It rains for 40 days. Then he rides out in this boat for 150 days until it crashes into a mountain, right? Because the mountain's like below the waters, right? So the waters all start to fall, and then so he's sitting in this boat after he crashes in the mountain. He's sitting for another 40 days. 40 days is like a time of purification and waiting. So, like, the earth is being purified. Right? So he waits in the boat for another 40 days. He opens up the hatch and sends out a bird, a raven first, actually. Yeah. He sends out a raven. And then he sends out a dove. And then 7 days later he sends out another dove. That was meant to be a softball, sorry. He sends out another dove. The first dove comes back like immediately. The second dove comes back with a branch in its mouth, and the third dove after 7 days doesn't come back at all, which tells Noah that, like, the land is about now. We can go out, right? So they go out. The first thing that he does is he builds an altar and offers a sacrifice. Again, from these poor animals that just survived this whole trip, he picks some of them and sacrifices them, right? So he sacrifices them, and check this out. Check this out. God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, "Be fertile and multiply and fill the earth." Where have we heard that before? Adam and Eve. Right. So this is like, what's really cool is Noah is like a second. It's like a second Adam and Eve. It's like a second shot. And it's actually like we're sticking the landing so far here. It's actually like we're being faithful. We're following. It's this event, Noah's faithfulness in this, that undoes the curse from Cain. So now the earth is no longer unfruitful. Now they can sow and till and grow things again, right? So right? So it's this thing that undoes that, but like the curse from Adam and Eve is still there. But it's like there's the chance here still that, like, maybe we can undo this. like maybe we can actually be restored. If Noah continues to be faithful, if Noah continues to obey God, if Noah continues to be righteous, imagine what God can do through him, right? Like he could be the one. His line, his sons could be the ones, right? No. Noah, a man of the soil. What a great line. That'd be like, imagine that on your tombstone. Father Tim Fahey, a man of the soil, was the first to plant a vineyard. Noah's the first guy to plant a vineyard. He drank some of the wine, became drunk, and lay naked inside of his tent. Now, don't judge the guy too harshly, because Cain was the first person to be born. Oh dear, I keep hitting these buttons. Abel was the first person to die. Noah's the first guy to ever grow grapes and the first guy to ever drink wine. So he doesn't actually know that it gets you drunk until he's drunk, right? So drunk that he's laying naked inside of his tent. So he's inside his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father's nakedness and told two of his brothers outside. His two brothers, Shem and Japheth, however, took a robe, and holding it on their shoulders, they walked backwards and covered their father's nakedness, since their faces were turned the other way. They did not see their father's nakedness. When Noah woke up from his wine and learned what his youngest son had done to him, he said, "Cursed be Canaan, the lowest of slaves shall he be to his brothers." This is a very confusing incident, because one would not think that to walk in on your father who's laying there naked and just to see him naked would really be that big of a deal. So it seems odd that anybody's getting cursed at all from this. And one would think that if anybody is getting cursed, it's the one who's done the thing. Canaan is the son of the guy who does it. So Noah curses his grandson for what his son does. And you might say to yourself, that doesn't make much sense to me. Here's the thing, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. This passage is a little bit tricky, and it's one that a lot of people are having a hard time really understanding. So here's some possible explanations. There is some precedent in the Bible, a very solid one, that to see someone else's nakedness is to have some sort of intercourse with them. So in that sense, it could be the case that Ham did something to his dad while his dad was drunk. This is also kind of a dark story. There's also the chance that Ham did something with his mother while Noah was drunk. And that would make sense why Canaan is the one who's getting cursed, because Canaan would be the son of that, the product of that relation with his mother. But that's a little bit tricky, because it would seem like Noah curses Canaan as soon as he wakes up. There's also, this makes the most sense, but is also the most culturally removed from our situation. There's some sense that Ham, by looking at and mocking his father's nakedness, is radically challenging the idea of, oh no! Radically challenging the idea of fatherhood. And remember, this is supposed to be the new Eden. This is supposed to be the place where there's no more sin. This is supposed to be the place where they're living in perfect harmony and perfect fidelity. So even a serious but less serious sin such as this is still a rejection of God's plan, right? So whatever this, and that also would make sense if it is just an insult against fatherhood. That's why he would curse his son. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like the way that you, my son, have turned against me, so may your son be cursed because of da 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 da. It's a kind of confusing, and it's not like all scholars are like, gee, I don't know. There are a lot of opinions on what this could mean, and there's a lot of people spend their lives talking about what this could mean, right? Which is not a life ill spent. It'd be a weird life, but not a life ill spent. Oh my gosh. It's not this thing's fault, it's just my fault. I keep squeezing it. This passage represents like kind of the loss of that opportunity that Noah has of like going the distance. Like that Noah and his sons have to actually make everything right. He is a good and faithful man who follows the Lord and who frees us from the curse and who like establishes this line. So the same way that Seth was like the holy line, now Shem and his sons are like the line that God is guiding, right? And Canaan and his sons is like the line of Cain, right? So this is kind of like shot blown again in a certain sense. What happens after this, you get another few chapters of so-and-so begot so-and-so. And then you hit, it's actually like the story of like how all the nations came to be, all the different descendants. Pretty cool. And then you have this, oh my gosh, you have the story, I just put it down, stop playing with it. You get a story of the Tower of Babel, which is Babel, the tower, which is like a manifestation of the people like thinking that we can do this without God. Like wholesale, people have kind of like started to reject following God. Wholesale, people have kind of forgot about him. Wholesale, people have stopped calling on his name and praying to him. This is kind of a dark episode in this whole story. Like Noah is a shining star in this, but overall the story here is like mankind continually having these chances to make good their faults, continually having their own chances to succeed where Adam and Eve failed, continually having these warnings and these opportunities to be faithful, and continually rejecting them. And kind of the question is, like, if we continue to reject God so completely, what will happen to us? Who will be the descendant who is going to make this right? Or at least who is going to be the next Noah who takes us the next step in following God, the next step in restoring this relationship, the next step in setting up a holy line, a holy nation that's committed to following him? And if you want to know the answer to that question, come back 2 weeks from now. Next week is what? Like the Amazing Race? Oh, that's good. What's that? Scavenger hunt. It's going to be awesome next week for next Bosco night. But the week after this, we're going to continue this story. So stay tuned.